Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Finance and Admin for the County of Renfrew on Thursday, October 14th, 2021. It is in fact 9:30, and I'm going to call this meeting to order. As we gather this morning, I would like to acknowledge on behalf of Council and our community that we are meeting on the traditional territory of the Algonquin people. We would like to thank the Algonquin people and express our respect and support for their rich history, and we are extremely grateful for their many and continued displays of friendship. We also thank all the generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. Connie, has roll call been taken?
Through you, Chair to Committee, yes, roll call has been taken.
Thank you. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or the general nature thereof? I see none. Can I get an adoption? Paul, do you want two different adoptions or can I just do one?
You can do one, ma'am. I would prefer actually if you were to do two, just in case there's an issue with either one of them, so they're identified separately.
I can do that. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you,
Can I get an adoption of the minutes of the previous meeting held on September 16th, 2021, please? Moved by Councillor Hunt, seconded by the warden. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. And can I get an adoption of the minutes of the meeting on the special meeting on September 27th, 2021, please? Moved by Councillor Sweet, seconded by Councillor Peckett. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. We have no delegations today, so we can move right on to the administration report. Paul, take it away.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. We have several items for the administration report today that is found on page 3. The first item, Chair, in the report is an information presentation by Mr. Perkins on growth-related policies. There was a resolution presented at Operations Committee earlier this week that will be brought forward to County Council, but because there's financial implications and long-term financial implications at that for the County of Renfrew, it was recommended that this presentation would be a good fit for the Finance and Admin Committee for your information and a bit of a precursor to County Council coming up. So, Chair, if I may, I will turn it over to Mr. Perkins to give a little bit more of the background as to how we got here today and the 4 options that were originally presented, and then an overview of the staff recommendation, if that works for you, Chair.
I think that would be excellent. Thank you. And I think with committee's indulgence, Councillor Sweet has to leave at 10:15. So I think what we'll do is after Lee's presentation, I'd like to open it up to questions at that time instead of leaving it till the end of the report. Everyone's okay with that? Warden? Everyone good? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair.
Go ahead, Lee.
Oh, thank you, Chair, and through you to committee. I will share my screen. Hopefully, you can all see that, I hope. Excellent. So this is a proposal for cost sharing with local municipalities. Oops, sorry. My apologies. Slow. Technical difficulties. So as Finance and Administration Committee may know, the County of Renfrew currently does have an asset management plan, but of course our asset management plan only maintains the current assets and has no provision for growth or infrastructure expansion that's being experienced throughout the county. So at the April Operations Committee meeting, staff were directed to research other policy positions from upper tier municipalities with respect to growth, specifically upper and lower tier responsibilities as growth related infrastructure. So some of the feedback that staff received, from the feedback that we received, the draft cost sharing with local municipalities is going forward. So presented in this presentation and at the Operations Committee was a draft County of Renfrew cost sharing with local municipalities policy. The policy clearly outlines the county's responsibilities and financial contributions that would be required for any expansion of infrastructure. So for example, what we have here is a typical county road. So as you see in your top right-hand corner, that's a standard roadway that we see throughout the county. And again, it is a roadway that moves goods and services and connects communities within the county of Renfrew. And again, that's a 7-meter wide road, 2-lane, north-south direction. And then of course, your bottom right corner is a 2-lane road design with a parking lane, or what we would call an urban cross section. So essentially essentially 10.5 meters wide with concrete on both sides. So the County of Renfrew's long-term asset management plan only provides funding for the current infrastructure that you just seen. So whatever is in place, whatever you see now in your local communities that are on a county road is what the asset management plan has in place to cover. So for simplicity of this presentation, we'll consider that a regular 7-meter wide county road has a cost of $1,000 per meter. So in keeping with that draft policy, so the County of Renfrew shall be responsible for the construction of an urban cross-section up to a minimum of geometric standards of Ontario for undivided urban roads. So again, that's a 2-lane and 1 parking lane, but in no case would it be less than 7 meters of any county road in an urban area. The county is responsible for the curbs and gutters. Also, the county is responsible for the construction of a paved boulevard between curb and sidewalks to a maximum width of 0.5 meters. The construction of catch basins and the portion of storm sewers required to drain county roads. That's county responsibility. The construction of a full rural section within any urban area is the county responsibility, of course. The remaining costs of those works covered by item 5, requested by the local municipality and deemed feasible and economical by the Director of Public Works and Engineering or the designate. That would be a responsibility. Land acquisition, when land is required to accommodate a road section specified in 1, shall be the responsibility of the county. So the local municipality share is, of course, as you know from Section 55 of the Municipal Act, 100% of all construction of all sidewalks, the construction of that portion of storm sewer over and above what is required for county road drainage, and 100% of all costs of all local services such as water, sewer, sanitary works, and of course, there is a formula that's used to calculate the amount of county road drainage inside of a storm drainage system. So also local municipality is responsible for 100% of the paved portion beyond the curb and sidewalk. That's beyond the 0.5 that the county is responsible for. Land acquisition when required to accommodate road elements beyond the specification of Section 1. 50% of the construction of additional parking lanes, 100% of the construction of paved shoulders, whether behind curbs or gutters. Engineering in proportion with the cost share of the project. And of course, the county would have charged a 7% admin charge in county in-house for county administration. So with that said, going back to the beginning of your report, the strategic initiatives for the County of Renfrew are, of course, strategic goal 1 is to inform the provincial and federal government of our needs and to get our fair share. So again, by using this cost sharing agreement, we now have a formula in place that when we do go forward to look for funding and money, we have an actual formula that says, okay, this is the township share, and this is the county share. So it would make it much easier, I believe, in going forward. Of course, strategic goal number 2 is fiscal responsibility. So as you know, we're currently embroiled in a number of situations, which we will work out. But again, thinking strategically, this would be in place for future projects that come forward due to growth throughout the communities in the County of Renfrew. And again, this is, in my opinion, a strategically thinking for 5-10 years down the road for other issues that will come up as growth continues throughout the valley. And then, of course, strategic plan 3 is to find cost savings and demonstrate leadership while still meeting the needs of our communities. So with this strategic goal, we can now sit down with all the local planning, all the local public works people and say, here's our asset management plan over the next 10 years. These are the works that we are going to be doing in your area. This is the amount of money that the County of Renfrew can contribute to if you want to rebuild your downtown, for example, in Deep River, or if you want to expand a parking lane in Palmer Rapids. And if it falls within our County of Renfrew asset management long-term plan, then this is an opportunity to sit down and know that the county can cost share with you. And then finally, strategic goal number 4 is position the county of Renfrew so that residents benefit from the advantages of technology. So as I alluded to earlier, it's not really advance of technology, but advance of communication here. We can go forward and be strategic with our lower tier municipalities, discuss the issues that are coming up in terms of growth with new subdivisions or commercial developments and stuff like that, and say, you know, here's the county roads that are within your municipality, and we are hopefully going to be able to be cooperative and helpful and move things forward and in a much more responsible manner. And with that said, I leave it for questions, Chair. Thank you very much. I'll stop sharing.
Thank you, Lee. Thanks for that brief but great presentation. So I will open it up to questions, comments, concerns. I just want to remind this committee that this is an information item. We are not voting on it. It was voted on at operations to go to county council. So I will leave it at that. Questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Hunt.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Lee. Lee, having been at operations, I did some thinking on this after, and I just want to be clear, what would happen if like 417 is coming up and say if Highway 508 or any highway had to be twinned? So today it's a 2-lane. What happens if the amount of traffic forces that to go to a 3-lane or a 4-lane?
So thank you, Chair. Sorry, and thank you. And through you, Chair, to Councillor Hunt. What right now the draft cost sharing agreement that we have in place would state is the county of Renfrew responsible for a 10.5 meter wide road with concrete curbs on both sides. So if it's deemed necessary from the municipality, because it would be a municipality that would decide that the road needs to be twinned, not MTO or the county of Renfrew, because as you know, the county of Renfrew right now, our asset management plan, we maintain our assets. But if the township of Greater Madawaska needed to twin that road, then the county of Renfrew is contributing 10.5 meters wide, full depth reconstruction plus 2 concrete curbs. That would be the cost. So essentially, the cost of a county road is, for simplicity, was $1,000 a meter. The cost of an urbanized county road, which was 2 curbs and 10.5 meters wide, is about $3,000 a meter. So therefore, if you guys wanted to twin a road, then it would cost, the county would be able to contribute $3,000 a meter.
Supplementary, Councillor Hunt.
Thank you. I guess that is where I'm having a little bit of problem for, because take, for example, the ski hill. You know, that brings a lot of traffic. It doesn't bring taxes. You know, the people don't live here. They come and visit, but very well from 417 to Burnstown, you know, that road may require to be widened because of the amount of traffic on it. And McNabb Braeside would basically have to pay for that, and they get absolutely no taxes from it. So I'm just wondering, you know, and really it's all of Renfrew County that would benefit from a major attraction that happens to be within one municipality, but it serves the county. So I'm a little concerned on that there wouldn't be dollars there to afford to do it. Therefore, it may not get done, and it's creating quite a safety hazard, liability, whatever. So, you know, when I heard it first, I kind of was okay with it, and I'm getting to have a few concerns. Thank you.
I see our CAO has his hand up and his hand up. Go
Thank
ahead,
you.
Paul.
I just want to, Lee said it in his answers, and I don't think he emphasized it enough though. This policy and the basis of the policy is when a local municipality deems it. In the situation that Councillor Hunt is raising, it is a much different situation where it probably would not be raised by any one individual municipality, and the corporation and county council would then need to make a bigger decision with respect to how an issue like this were treated. because the policy is very specific to those local growth issues. And it is triggered at the request of the local municipality. So where a subdivision goes in and the demands are much higher and those types of situations. Where it would be the entire length of a road, like 508, for example, in the example you gave, that is a much bigger issue that would be brought to county council and discussed on how it would be financed and budgeted for. Our current policy would suggest that, given the nature of what you're raising, it was something that would be debentured by the county of Renfrew. And as you had indicated, would be of benefit to the entire county. So therefore, there would be a separate discussion on an issue like that, would be my understanding of how this policy is currently written.
Thank you for that clarification. Councillor Sweet. Oh, I'll come back to you, Councillor Hunt.
Well, thank you very much, Chair. Yeah. I have a little issue with some of the process that has gone on with this particular initiative. I think this is a very, very important initiative, and I think it requires a lot more in-depth analysis and discussion. One of the reasons, quite frankly, that the town hasn't put in any comments is that I was waiting, and I talked to Paul about this, for a letter from the county indicating what the 4 options were going forward, and allow my council to discuss this. This has not happened, and it certainly indicates on the report here that 4 options were sent out for review. Those 4 options, I never received a letter, neither did my CEO. I did indicate to my CEO that there is something coming, but the county will be following some documents to speak to this particular situation. So I have a little trouble with the communications end of this situation. I am particularly concerned about what is growth. I don't know that I'm completely happy with the way that it's indicated that it's on the shoulders of the lower tier to speak to that. These are county roads, county administrations, or county responsibilities. So I have a little trouble with that situation. One of the 4 items that, as I understood, was supposed to be discussed was development fees. And from what I can gather, that has just been taken right off the table, period. Boom, bang, gone. I don't know why. There was no robust discussion on development fees. I have a feeling that most lower tier municipalities don't really understand or grasp what development fees are all about. We've had them for over 20 years, and I hear that we'll never build another house if we have development fees. We'll never do this. We'll never do that. I think that's the fair and equitable way to put funding into the environment that you're talking about, and I think we are responsible to do that. Just to give you an example of what I'm talking about, we've had development fees in, as I say, for 15, 20 years, and just the other night, last Monday, last Tuesday at our council meeting, we just approved a neighborhood park worth $475,000. The money is coming out of development fees paid by the local developer, and that is being paid for. That's how that works in our community. We have in excess of $1.5 million in development fees. And development fees are allocated into specific areas that you're allowed to charge development fees for, one of which is not an expansion of a county road. It is not part of the criteria that's in our development fees bylaw. If we were to go forward with this process, and I have some troubles with this, to be honest with you, then we would probably, if it's endorsed, and I think it has been endorsed by operations, which means it's going forward to county council. If it was to go forward, the town of Petawawa would want to go back and review its development fees, specifically to include the future growth of roads within the county of within the town of Petawawa that are in fact county administrations. I'll need to go to the Act and see if we can actually charge development fees and charge them on facilities that don't belong to us. I don't know. That's something I'll need to get the CEO to talk about. Here's a scenario, and it's kind of a little bit what Councillor Hunt talked about. Economic development is the main reason you build roads. For no other reason. It gets people back and forth and go to work, et cetera, et cetera. I hear a lot of talk about growth required for homes and houses and so forth. But I think we miss one of the real key important areas that certainly is in my community. And I'll give you an example of what I'm concerned about. As you know, the garrison is one, if not the biggest employer within Renfrew County, and I'd suggest perhaps the single largest employer in Eastern Ontario, and it's in my municipality. I don't know if you recall something that was said by the former garrison commander, in which he indicated, or was asked, what is growth going to be like in Petawawa? And his answer to that was, until, and I'm paraphrasing it, that until we get the proper infrastructure in place, there'll be no future growth in Petawawa on the garrison. That's a concern and should be a concern to all of us. Economic development is all about growth and employment, etc. Here's a scenario, and it's not outside the realms of possibility. What would happen, and I need to get a better understanding of this, what would happen if somewhere in one of the bases throughout Ontario or even Canada, and we've heard lots of rumors about JTF2 and the CSOR and so forth that are supposed to go to Trenton but could end up in Petawawa. It would be nice to think that every one of those soldiers, if there was 600, 700, 800 of them, resided in the town of Petawawa. I'd have no problem with that in terms of this policy. But that is not the case. In many cases, and I know that I think there are some individuals here who have soldiers that live within their municipality, Whitewater Region, City of Pembroke, Laurentian Valley, perhaps in Banashire Valley. They all live in there and they contribute to these local economies. However, they all have to go to work. And where do they go to work? They go to work on the base. The base road is already over capacity. It was over capacity in 2009, 2005 actually, when we first started that. What happens if in fact 700 soldiers get transferred up here and they're scattered throughout the area, and the situation going forward onto the base is absolutely crazy? Through this policy, you're suggesting that the local municipality says, this road is deficient, it has to be upgraded, we should be paying for it, or 50% of it, or the expansion. I don't think that's fair. I really don't think that's a fair and equitable way to deal with this situation. Everybody else is paying their taxes in these areas that a lot of these soldiers live in. Case in point, CNL, Atomic Energy, and Glenn knows this as well as anyone, that it should be the largest municipality within the county of Renfrew because of Atomic Energy up there, what 3,500 employees. But as we know, with CNL, they live all over the Upper Ottawa Valley. And in fact, I would suggest to you that a very large proportion of them live within the city of Pembroke. So just to emphasize my point, why would I be asked to pay for that type of scenario that is, that the soldiers live all over the Upper Ottawa Valley and all of the municipalities? If it goes forward the way it is, and I think it's, and I don't really understand why the big rush is here to push this through as we're doing. As I say, I talk about communications, and I'd like to have a real robust discussion on development fees. They have not hindered one house to be built in my community. I dare say they are not restricting growth in Arnprior. So I'd like to see a discussion on that. It's interesting to note that as roads are built, so comes the growth. And you see that right now coming out of 417 up into Arnprior, and the growth that you're experiencing there, and the growth you're experiencing with Renfrew. Development fees, I think, are a fair and equitable way to do it. And to me, it hasn't been discussed and it's just simply taken off the table. That's disappointing, to be honest with you. If it does go through, then the
Mr.
town of
Sweet.
Petawawa will have to be, pardon me,
Could I, you've unpacked a lot of luggage there. Is there, can I just stop you so that Paul and Lee can respond to a couple of things, if you don't mind?
sure, I gotta leave anyway, so.
Well, that's the other thing. I was sort of keeping my eye on the time, and I
Sure.
know that other
Thank-
people want to speak, and I
Thank
don't want
you.
you to miss out on that discussion. Paul, can you tell us when that was sent, that first communique was sent out to the local tiers?
Sure, actually, there was an initial communication sent out, I believe in late June following county council with the request for comments back by September. And at the CAO level, we did follow up with the local CAOs. We did receive some comments back. I know that the CAO in Petawawa did indicate that they were aware of the proposals. To be frank, the majority of feedback that we got from many of the local municipalities did not have an interest in development charges. So hence the move from county staff to put in place the cost sharing model that, and our, with that cost sharing model, our hope was a plan for the long term that would support growth within the county and that would apportion costs. And as Lee had indicated, that would allow us to be much more strategic and plan for the longer term. So it gives us a sense of certainty for the longer term is the overall objective with this approach. I absolutely understand Mayor Sweet's concerns, but there was several options and several emails sent out with the policies attached that Lee had also sent out to the folks at the town of Petawawa. And I believe there was one follow-up earlier in the month of September with them as well.
Thank you for that clarification. I'm going to throw it back to Councillor Hunt. He's been waiting patiently.
Thank you. I was just going to thank Paul for clearing up, the scenario that I presented, but I really feel that perhaps it should be built into the policy so someone in the future reading the policy knows that there is another avenue. I'm a little concerned because, without that being in there and held strong, it would be like the MTO saying the road between Renfrew and Renfrew, if you want to take it from a 2-lane to a 4-lane, well, we do the 2-lane, you do the extra 2. Well, McNabb, Renfrew, Horton could not afford that. So, I think what is brought forward is good, but it needs further discussion. And now that county councillors will understand it after the county council meeting, we should have an opportunity, and it can be brought up at county council, to take it back and, talk it out amongst our municipalities, and see what the avenues are. Perhaps a development charge, like Mayor Sweet said, could be brought into our local municipalities, but I don't know that either. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Sweet.
Yeah, thank you. I think, and thanks, Paul. Paul, I think as far as communications is concerned, I asked a number of times through your office if you would forward that information to us. So I'm still concerned about the flow of information. I have 5 pages here of concerns that we have in the town of Petawawa prepared as a result of. And I think I talked to you about it. I said, look, Paul, there's no way we can get this done by September the 1st. However, okay, that aside, a couple of things. Grandfathering. Are any of these roads that are currently needing, and let's be specific, and I'll call a spade a shovel here, Petawawa Boulevard, as you know, I've been chasing that since, well, most of you were not here at 2007, something like that. Is that grandfathered, or is that something that, okay, I simply say, we got to put that 4th lane in there, and it's our responsibility. That's one of the things. I'd like to know what municipalities also that were contacted that have a similar type policy in place. 2 or 3, 4, 6, 10, 20, I have no idea of that. And I think that would be an important initiative to go forward as well. It seems to me a little strange, well, I shouldn't say anything because I'll get too excited about this. But anyway, I'm very passionate about the fact that development fees are very important. And I think we should have a robust discussion. At the end of the day, it is county council's decision with the county council hats on whether we should move down in that general direction. You can take feedback from the lower tiers. Got it. I understand. Forever and a day, there's been pushback on this particular situation. But for me, what I see, if it's all about houses and subdivisions, etc., the fair and equitable way to put it in place is development fees. The $400,000 that we put into Petawawa Boulevard when you resurfaced Petawawa Boulevard came from development fees for a 200-unit subdivision that paid for the upgrades to the infrastructure that's in the ground. And I don't believe for 1 minute that we've lost the sale of a house or the building of a house because of a development fee. If I thought that for even a second, there would be a long, hard look at eliminating development fees, but it's rolled over into the cost of the house. The developer pays for the excess capacity that's been paid for by the past taxpayers of my community. With that,
Thank you for that.
Pardon me?
Thank
Sorry.
you for that. I think since this is a contentious issue and it is going to county council, I think maybe if everybody on our committee wants to come prepared to speak to this with all 17 heads put together, I will be the first to say, Bonashir Valley, we don't have development fees. We've actually put it in a very recent piece of literature, a welcome package saying, we don't have development fees. So I know that we were one of the municipalities that pushed back on that. But I think if it's all right, again, with your indulgence committee, if we could put this, oh, yes, Councillor Peckett, you wanted to.
Thank you, Chair. My suggestion would be from hearing the discussion this morning, and I have to agree with a lot of the comments that were made, and especially Councillor Hunt's concern, although it was that particular situation was explained satisfactorily to me. But there is other situations that I think the county needs to look at more in depth. And my suggestion was going to be that this be brought back to the operations committee and with a maybe a more urgent notice sent out to all municipalities to send in their comments, because so that the operations committee can get a chance to look through them and maybe work some of them out. So that would be my suggestion. And the example that I will give you for my community is, should the recycling plant in my township move ahead, and it's still going ahead slowly, I feel that there would need to be road improvements where the entranceway would be off of County Road 508. So by listening to this now, it looks like the township of McNabb Braeside is expected to pay for all of that improvements. And yet with a recycling plant there, it benefits the entire county. Thank you.
Thank you. So procedurally, and Michael, I see your hand up. Just give me 1 sec. Paul, procedurally, this is going forward to county council from operations and from FNA. Would it be appropriate at that time for Chair Peckett to say that we'd like to recommend that it go back to operations with a sense of urgency to the local tiers.
Thank you for that, Chair, and through you to committee. That would be the process. It would be referred back to committee from County Council for further review. But Chair, if I may, there's been lots of fantastic discussion today on this, and I anticipate there will be a lot further discussion at County Council. So I guess what I would ask is when it gets to County Council, we could get some of those ideas on the table so we could get clear direction when we bring it back to operations. Councillor Hunt provided us with an example of an area where the policy could use some clarification, and I think we can achieve that. We're not able to achieve that now, given the procedure in place. So it will have to go as is to County Council, and then those items brought forward and referred back to committee so staff can take another further look at it and incorporate some of those at the committee level and bring them back. But it is those types of comments with respect to the policy that we're looking for so we can bring it back. Council ultimately, though, would have to make the decision. If they decide not to go with this particular approach, then we would need further direction as to explore a different approach, like a review of development charges or something along those lines. But again, those are not the comments that we had originally heard from the municipalities. Thank you for that, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My questions are more technically oriented that perhaps might be of use in even when this is brought forward to County Council. On page 5 of the report, and that is the page 1 of the proposed policy, item 1A identifies geometric design standards for undivided urban roads in Ontario in quotation marks. I wonder if Mr. Peckett, Councillor Peckett, or perhaps Mr. Perkins can identify that being in quotations. What is the source of that? That is question 1. Question 2 is on the next page, page 6 of the PDF, and it is within the section 5. It would seem to me that the kind of explanatory note under item C probably is more appropriate under item B. I don't think in any place in the county of Renfrew, the county of Renfrew has an interest in either sanitary or potable water systems, but does with respect to storm sewers. So I would expect that that probably lends itself more towards item B than item C. And finally, I will note if committee turns to page 9 of our PDF, you will note that is page 5 of 4. So I think that just in technically speaking, there are 5 pages to the policy. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I noticed the page 5 of 4, not when I read it on my laptop, but when I printed it, I was like, oh, wait a minute, we've got a problem there. So thank you for those notes, and perhaps clarification can be brought up at County Council.
Actually, if Mr. Perkins could respond to the first 2, though, i.e. what was the source of the urban design specific item, and also within item 5, whether that percentage of local share versus county share is more appropriate with reference to subsection B as opposed to C.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Chair, through you to Councillor Donahue. Thank you for the questions. My apologies on the page numbering. I'm actually looking at the proper final here, and it does have 2 of 5. Geometric design, of course, is from the Ontario Municipal Infrastructure Standards Guide. That's available to all of us, of course, OCMI guide, which is in the case of the presentation I just showed you, was a rural road is a 7-meter wide section with so much material underneath. So proper construction. Then, of course, an urban section is a 10.5 meter wide section. And again, that's from the Ontario standards for infrastructure, municipal infrastructure. Oh, and C and B, I can certainly change that quickly. No problem. My apologies.
Thanks, Lee. All right, anything further on number 1? Yes, Lee, go ahead.
And if I may, Chair, just to Councillor Hunt's point through you again. So item 11 gives County Council the ability if deemed advisable, to make exceptions to this policy. And it's provided that the exemptions are not countywide. So there's actually, as you'll see with most ministerial things that come out of government, there is a clause in here that will let us deal with the one-off hypotheticals that we're talking about. So, and again, this is a strategic plan for going forward in the next, few years. So there is no rush, as alluded to. So, but thank you all for your time.
Thank you. All right, with that, Paul will go to number 2, please.
Thank you, Chair. Number 2 is provided as information, Chair, and is the public COVID communication summary from the crisis communications team, and just as an update on our continuing efforts around communications. If I may, Chair, I'll go to item 3. Item 3 is just information for committee and members of council's awareness around the intake for the municipal modernization program. Please note the October 19th deadline, which is 5 days away. And as council or committee is aware, the County of Renfrew will be preparing a proposal that will focus on what we hope are some outcomes related to our corporate IT strategy. And again, I believe that direction was approved by County Council at last month's meeting to move forward with that application. Finally, Chair, Tourism Economic Development and Recovery Fund speaks to the tourism economic development funded by the Ministry of Heritage, Sport, Tourism and Culture, which is an application-based cost sharing program designed to promote non-capital funding to projects that either encourage the development of innovative tourism products, support tourism investment, and build the capacity of Ontario's tourist industry. We did want to make you aware of that because many of our communities have tourist-based industries. And if you're speaking to any of your local operators, we want to make sure that council is aware so they can convey this information to those groups. And we're happy to support them through our economic development folks. So that fund is, municipalities and destination marketing organizations like OBTA are eligible, Indigenous organizations, and other non-for-profits are also eligible. So if you have thoughts, I would direct you to Alistair Baird on how we could work with our local tourist industry to apply for this fund and move it forward. I believe, Chair, that concludes the administration report.
Thank you. All right, so we'll move back to number 2, COVID communications. Seeing none. Number 3, the intake 3 funding. And finally, number 4, the economic recovery fund. I think that this is fantastic news after the last almost 2 years that we've had. The report as a whole. Can I get a mover and seconder to adopt the administration report, please? Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Anything further? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you, committee. And with that, we will move on to Mr. Foss and his departmental report.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Finance Committee. So beginning on page 10, the Corporate Services Departmental Report. Item number 1, really just an update on our 2021 Service Awards program. And once again, related to the pandemic, the difficulty in planning and an indoor large gathering of folks to celebrate their long service to the County of Renfrew. It was really not possible this year. So just for your awareness, we are recognizing 86 staff members, service award recipients who have attained from 10 to 40 years of service, as well as there is a listing of the retirees. So congratulations to all of those staff members for their service to the County of Renfrew, as shown in this attachment. Item number 2, just an update on the 2022 budget. And of course, committee and council is aware of the direction that was provided to staff. And so we will, over the next number of months, be working very diligently to prepare a 2022 budget that would meet with council direction, culminating with presentations of those budgets to all committees in the month of January, as well as all of County Council at the budget workshop. So we have one budget meeting that is completed at this time. So the Operations Committee and the Public Works Department have already gone through their budget process. So they were keen and they were first up. And so we continue to work through the process. Item 3, an update for you on Provincial Offences Administration, the workload. You'll see the months June, July, August, and September provided for you, information provided in the table. The month of September with 887 charges. So roughly at that rate, we would be experiencing about 10,000 charges per year. So the last 4 months have been very much supportive of that sort of a trend. This committee will be aware that, you know, the summer months are typically the months where we do receive a significant number of charges. And so we'll just keep watching this trend to see if it continues throughout the fall and into the winter months. Item 4, beginning of the month of March, we began tracking POA court backlog, and that backlog related to a number of issues. Not all of them COVID-19, certainly some of them related to the fact that we were without a significant numbers of justices of the peace across Eastern Ontario. So that chart from March to September would indicate to you we had 36 scheduled court days, and 17 of them, almost 50%, have been canceled because of the inability for us to be able to support those courts with justices of the peace. That has translated into a current backlog just under 1,000 charges. And given our current rate, if you will, the number of court days that we are entitled to, our estimates are that we are about 13 and a half months in backlog in clearing these charges from the list. Item number 5, really an update on the program, the digital strategy review process. And of course, this committee is well aware that the fact that the Perry Group was successful in our request for proposal process. We are currently planning internally all of the best baseline assessments for all county departments focusing on digital services, and they include hardware and software and infrastructure and personnel and online services, business tools, et cetera, et cetera. And one very important component of this process is consultation with stakeholders. And so the Perry Group, as part of their process, and I think as I mentioned or responded to a question from this committee early in the process, they want to hear from County Council. And so they have scheduled 2 sessions. They'll be identical sessions. And so whoever can participate either on November the 3rd or November the 11th, one day or the other. If you are able to participate and would like to speak with the folks from Perry Group, just please phone or email Connie Wilson, our administrative assistant, who will coordinate those and provide the Zoom link information for you to participate. Page number 19 really lays out sort of an interview guide, if you will, which the Perry Group will use, and they've done this process many, many times to really sort of guide the discussion for your input in the process. And so we consider that to be a very integral component. And so we hope that as many of you as possible can participate. Chair, item number 6 begins a discussion of policies, and I wonder, bylaws. So I wonder if I might stop there and allow for some questions.
Excellent. Thank you. So we'll go back to information item number 1, the service awards and retirees. It's such a shame that we can't do this. And what a list of wonderful, wonderful employees. Yes, Warden Robinson.
Thank you very much, Chair. And I was going to say the same thing. I was only able to attend one of the service award banquets, I believe, when you were the warden. And it was very enjoyable, and I could tell that the staff really felt appreciated. So, you know, they really have been cheated out of that opportunity and that experience the last 2 years. You know, and I'm seeing, like, I guess we understand that in the next few days, the provincial government is going to start opening things up a little bit more. So I'm really hoping that come 2022, that the people that qualify for these awards will actually be able to get together and celebrate as a team. Thank you.
And there is an announcement coming at 11 o'clock. So if we're close to the end, I think maybe we won't take a break, but if we're not close to the end, then I think that we should take a break and see what the Ford government has to say. Councillor Donahue, did you have your hand up?
I did, Madam Chair. Thank you. Just echoing the warden's comments. I have had the honor to be at several of the celebrations honoring the service awards, both those of long service, but those also that are retiring. Perhaps some thought can be given to when normal or close to normal returns. Perhaps that is something where we could recognize all of those, even in those years that have passed, outside certainly of celebrating the long service to both this corporation, but also to this county of Renfrew. What always struck me at these affairs was the opportunity for that cross-pollination, if you will, where everyone got perhaps a better perspective on all of the vast service, the vast geography, and what it took to administer the county of Renfrew. And I thought that was also an outstanding kind of side effect, if you will, but a fantastic side effect was to celebrate right across the full entity. So perhaps some consideration can be given towards recognizing those from these years where we have been unable when we do return to normal.
I think that would be lovely, something to keep in mind. Anything further on one? 2022 budget. Look at those two departments being all keen to get their budgets done. Number 3, POA workload. Number 4, the backlog. It's ridiculous. Number 5, the IT digital strategy. I think that would be very interesting. And Connie, I would like to ask you for a Zoom meeting for the Wednesday, November 3rd meet. Oh, no, can't do that one. Uh-oh, I'm going to have to rearrange my schedule. I'll get back to you, Connie. Sorry. Anything on IT? All right, then we will move on to bylaws. Jeff, I'm going to turn this back over to you. And if you don't mind, guys, I'm just going to go dark for a sec. I've been sneezing and I desperately need a tissue. Sorry. The warden texted me. Bless you.
Thank you, Chair. Beginning on the top of page 13, which is bylaws, and I'll read the recommendation that the Finance and Administration Committee recommends to County Council that policy GA06 the investment policy be approved, and further that a bylaw to amend bylaw 5902, being a bylaw to establish corporate policies and procedures for the County of Renfrew, be adopted at the next session of County Council. We have attached, beginning on page 23, some revisions to our investment policy. And following our meeting in September, where we heard a presentation from the One Investment Company regarding some of the options and new opportunities that became available with this regulation that changed in 2018, we considered some of those new options. And so what we are proposing in this particular policy change is some recognition of that as being an option for the corporation to potentially broaden our investment options somewhere farther down the road. So I'm just going to turn to page 23 and talk to you a little bit about what some of those changes are. The first page of the policy really remains somewhat unchanged. Still the reference to 438.97, that regulation. The bottom of the page references that we will make investments in accordance with the investment guidelines, which are attached as Appendix A. And here we get into sort of our bold and strikeout approach. One of the suggestions that we heard from the staff at One Investment was that the regulation itself, kind of lists the various weightings or the various options that we can look to for investment options. So really looking at sort of the regulations around investment quality and types of investments. So their suggestion, and they're provided a significant number of examples of other municipalities who have updated their investment policy, is to look at a bit of a chart to guide sort of the policy investment decisions. And so rather than the prescriptive approach on page 25, which has kind of been replaced with strikeout, the top of page 26 becomes more of a simplified chart, which gives some direction on the weighting of our investments in each one of these categories. And so the first category references Ontario Reg 438.97, Section 2, and that is for federal, provincial, and municipal indebtedness. And that, of course, we attach the regulation. So that is actually on page number 29. Schedule 2 talks about bonds, debentures, promissory notes, and other evidence of indebtedness guaranteed by Canada or a province or territory or an agency of Canada, et cetera, et cetera. So within the table, we have provided the reference or the link right to the regulation, which provides for the allowable investments within category 1, let's call it, federal, provincial, and municipal indebtedness. And so we would look to a weighting minimum maximum of 0 to 100%, giving us full flexibility to look at moving our investment portfolio into something that would be guaranteed by the federal, provincial governments. Item number 2, or category number 2, would be in accordance with Section 2.3, which are Schedule 1, 2, and 3 bank deposits, receipts, notes, or similar instruments, which is very much where our current investment policy resides. With respect to guaranteed investment certificates, we use currently a 5-year investment horizon, so 5-year GICs, ensuring that about 1/5 of our entire portfolio renews each year and opens up to a variety of investment opportunities. Category number 3 references Section 2.4, which are bank and credit union guaranteed bonds. And here we are suggesting the weighting be from 0 to 25% of the portfolio. That particular area gets, I'm not going to say complicated, but on the bottom of page 29, it references bonds, debentures, promissory notes that are fully repaid no later than 2 years, which are short-term investments, and then 4.1 that are fully repaid more than 2 years if they're guaranteed by an institution listed in paragraph 3.1 above, which is Schedule 1, 2, or 3 bank, or a loan corporation or trust corporation that's registered under the Loan and Trust Corporations Act. Then it goes in to specify a little bit more specifically investments with credit unions and case populaires under 4.2. So allowing for us to consider investments within that particular category. None of those are particularly different from what we would have seen previously, but the fourth category, which is Regulation 43897, and references specifically to section 7.1 and 8.1. These are the changes that came forward in 2018. And so I would draw your attention to page 30. And 7.1 references bonds, debentures, promissory notes, or other evidence of indebtedness issued by a corporation incorporated under the laws of Canada or a province of Canada, ensuring that principal and interest shall be fully repaid more than 5 years after the date on which the municipality makes the investment. So not looking at anything short term, but 5-year or longer indebtedness for the corporation. 8.1 opens up our opportunity to shares issued by a corporation that is incorporated under the laws of Canada or within a province of Canada. Now, none of those speak to the one investment fund because that is a condition of the regulation. And bear with me as we turn to page 33. And you'll see at the top of the page, section 4.1, here are their conditions for the changes in the regulation. So 4.1 talks about a municipality shall not invest in a security under paragraph 7 or under paragraph 8 unless on the date the investment is made, specifically item number B, the municipality has entered into an agreement with the local authority services and the Chums Financing Corporation to act together as the municipality's agent. And then, of course, under 1.1, a municipality shall not invest in a security, again, under 7.1 or 8.1, unless on the date the investment is made, the municipality has entered into an agreement with the local authority services and Chums Financing Corporation to act as our agent for the investment in the security. So as we heard from our delegation last month, the only opportunity that municipalities have to broaden their investment options is through one investment, which is the local authority services or Chums Financing, and that is by regulation. So we cannot go to our BMO Nesbitt broker and ask for them to place any investments on our behalf. We can't enter into that agreement. It must be through the one investment corporation. The other item that we have within this particular policy, back to the policy itself and right below the table, no more than 20% of the total investment portfolio would be made up of instruments issued or guaranteed by a single entity, with the exception of a Canadian federal or provincial government or Schedule I bank. So limiting any exposure that we have in any one particular issuer. The rest of the policy follows what we had before for reporting, and the treasurer on an annual basis, reporting through this committee and then to county council on those specifics of the policy. Perhaps, Madam Chair, we might stop there before we move into human resources policy to see if there's any questions about our proposed changes to the investment policy.
Excellent. Yes, thank you. Can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Donahue, seconded by Councillor Doncaster. Comments, questions, concerns? I think you did an excellent job of outlining, and I'm sorry that I missed last month's meeting, but I did read this this policy that you sent us. It's very interesting, so thank you for that. I felt like I got caught up. All right, with that, all in favor? Thank you, committee. And now we will move on to number 7, the human resources policies and procedures.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps maybe I'll just go back to the recommendation at the end and provide a little bit of background on some of the policies that are going forward. I know that some of these policies are updated, but of course we do have one new policy that's also contained within this document. which is our vaccination policy. Actually, perhaps having said that, maybe I need to, sorry, Chair, maybe I need to backtrack, and I'll go through the recommendation to get this on the floor so that we can begin that discussion process. I apologize. So the recommendation is that this Finance and Administration Committee recommends to County Council that corporate policy A03, recruitment, A04, Ontario Human Rights Code violation, A09, misconduct in the workplace, A14, retirement and early retirement, E02, statutory and paid holidays full-time, and policy E03, statutory and paid holiday other than full-time. And I apologize, Madam Chair, that has been duplicated, that specific sentence, so I'll only read it out once. E11, telecommuting policy, G09, COVID-19 vaccination policy, H02, discipline and dismissal policy be approved, and further that a bylaw to amend bylaw 6303, being a bylaw to establish human resources corporate policies and procedures for the County of Renfrew, be adopted at the next session of County Council.
Thank you. I actually had the second line scratched out on my sheet. Okay, can I get a mover and seconder to get this on the floor, please? Moved by Councillor Rose, seconded by Councillor Hunt. All right. Okay, so do you want to take us through? I know that a lot of this is housekeeping. Probably the most important one that people will want to speak to is the vax policy, but go ahead, Jeff, take it away.
Thank you. So beginning on page 14, we have assembled really some highlights or bullet points of some of the amendments that needed to be changed for all of these policies, essentially, other than G09, which is the new policy. So beginning with A03, and interesting, once we look back in time to see when was the last time we actually looked at revisions to these policies. So A03 was last revised 4 years ago. That's our recruitment policy. We did, in a number of these policies, we considered, again, we have a whole new staff within our Human Resources Department. These folks working very diligently and ensuring that the decisions that we make are grounded in foundational documents, either in regulation or in Ontario law. And so updating our language to mirror that which is in the Ontario Human Rights Code with respect to discrimination. We also included an overview, a candidate assessment, and the selection criteria, and made sure that we had clearer definitions for nepotism and recruitment that potentially would give rise to conflicts or difficulties somewhere farther down the line. Item A04, which is the Ontario Human Rights Code violation policy, hasn't been updated for 8 years. Once again, we are copying or mirroring the language within the Ontario Human Rights Code with respect to harassment and discrimination to make sure that there is no difficulty arising from interpretation. We are using the language in the code. We are updating to include clearer definitions related to duty to accommodate, and those definitions are in the code, so ours are identical. We are updating to include clearer expectations and responsibilities for employer, supervisors, and employees when it comes to harassment and discrimination. Once again, referencing our foundational documents. We've removed what was in this policy, the step-by-step procedures related to investigating complaints, and that hasn't been removed from our practice, but that sits in a standard operating procedure for staff as opposed to a policy needing approval from County Council. More of a process issue as opposed to a policy issue. And then just updating necessary communication details for complaints, investigations, and corrective actions. Misconduct in the workplace, again, 6 years since we updated Human Rights Code and Occupational Health and Safety Act. There has been changes made in the last 6 years, and so our policy has been updated with respect to harassment and discrimination to ensure, again, that we are in compliance with those foundational documents. We're defining what constitutes misconduct, updating clear expectations and responsibility for all of those involved, and once again, removing from the policy this step-by-step procedure, which is more of a staff standard operating procedure as opposed to a policy piece. And so that particular policy around AO9, now that our staff are fully engaged in dealing with situations within the workplace, ensuring that we have very clear lines around expectations and responsibilities for all is very important when it comes to dealing with these issues on a practical level. Retirement and early retirement policy, no content changes, rather a formatting change. Statutory and paid holidays, that's been 12 years since that was updated, and it needed to change because of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation, September the 30th. EO3, exactly the same reason, the September 30th statutory holiday. E11, which is fairly new, that's our telecommuting policy that was revised or created a year ago. Again, clearer conditions for managing remote work arrangements and updating our telecommuting agreement. Perhaps I'll stop there, Madam Chair, because GO9, actually, maybe I'll just jump to HO2 and come back to GO9. HO2 is discipline and dismissal. That policy was not revised. It was last revised 16 years ago. Again, clear definitions of disciplinary action, clear definitions of what a progressive disciplinary model looks like and the types of discipline that the policy covers. Again, a clear definition of dismissal and clear expectations and responsibilities for supervisors with respect to this particular process. Those would be the ones perhaps that I would provide for your questions and comments before we start with GO9.
Sounds good. So I'll do this point by point. Anything on AO3 recruitment? Warden.
Thank you. It's basically, I just want to make a comment about all of them. I want to congratulate Jeff and his staff for doing this, especially when we see some have been updated for 12 or 16 years. So I have two questions. One is, what is the process for informing your staff of the changes in these human resource policies? Because I don't know that, possibly I should, but I don't. And the second question is, if Jeff will have a system so that these policies will be reviewed on a more regular basis, shall we say, than every 16 years. Thank you.
Thank you for the question.
I think that would probably be prudent.
And through you, Chair. Those are excellent questions. And maybe the second one first. Definitely part of our performance standards within the HR department are regular and routine policy revisions. And even if the policies don't require a revision, we want to see an updated date on them to at least indicate to us that they have been reviewed. And in our opinion, they are still in compliance with all those foundational documents. So that's very important to us. It may not be on an annual basis, but at least on a regular and routine part of our process, simply to ensure that we reviewed them. There are no changes with those acts that need policy updating. So that's something that that's a commitment within the performance standards of that HR department. Number two, communication. And so following adoption of any of these policy revisions, the HR department does reach out to all employees via email, ensuring that they are aware of the fact that these policies have been updated, and each of our employees' obligation to review those policies to be made aware of any changes that are impacting them. We have other responsibilities under our occupational health and safety committees to ensure that there has been dialogue with them. They have been consulted already on the development of some of these policies, anything and certainly impacting health and safety of the employees. And so that's actually a requirement of those committees, as well as some of our collective agreements with our bargaining units. There are requirements for us to ensure that any policy changes are reviewed and discussed through those joint committee meetings. And so, we certainly ensure that communication is throughout the organization to make sure that everyone is aware of these changes coming forward.
Jeff, do you get the employees to sign off that they've read them, or is it just on the honor system?
Well, to date, we have a number of techniques, I guess, to do this. But to date, the responsibility that we have within the HR department is to ensure that all employees are notified of these changes. We do have a number of tools within our long-term care homes and within our paramedic services division. This is an online sort of data management system where we can flag with these employee groups the policy updates and ensure that we manage the fact that they have seen and they have certified that they have reviewed these particular policies. To date, those applications are only available to staff working within long-term care and paramedic services. Part of our IT strategy review is to look at data management systems for human resources in general that would cover all 850 staff working for the County of Renfrew, as opposed to very specific departments. And so I'm hedging the answer a little bit because that's the direction that we want to move into, but that's not where we're at to date.
Thank you for that. All right, anything further on A03? Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Foss, perhaps Mr. Morrow. I note first off, let me back up. Again, I'm going to, like the warden, acknowledge the significant work that went into updating these. And I think that arriving at a regular interval for this, that is something actually the HPPA and guidance documents for public health actually do prescribe certain intervals where we are required to have reviewed these. My question specifically to the recruitment policy, I note in there the term difficulties. When I read difficulties, I thought of the understated reference to the sectarian violence in Ireland was often referred to as the Troubles. And I am quite interested in how we define difficulties.
Well, through you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor. We certainly don't have any reference to sort of the sectarian issues, more of a practical nature. And for example, within policy A03 at the bottom of page 43, we talk about nepotism and conflicts or difficulties. And of course, those are very specific to the supervisor-employee relationship when the employee is related to other members of our organization. And so these are more of a practical nature for that supervisory and management responsibilities that we have throughout the organization, that the challenge around difficulty is very, very broad. Certainly at the bottom of page 43, very specific to a relationship issue that we want to ensure that via policy, there is an awareness that this can be a challenge. And so we've provided some guideposts, if you will, within the policy to ensure that we manage those challenges appropriately. So it's more process related, conflicts and or difficulties. And I'm sure committee can imagine what those may be, given the nature of any supervisor and employee interaction.
For that. Anything further on AO3? Seeing none, I will move on to AO4, Human Rights Code. AO9, Misconduct. Councillor Donahue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I note on page, just bear with me, page 56. Just trying to scroll there as I'm speaking. Yeah, the second bullet point down reads possession, distribution, sale, transfer, or use of alcohol or illegal drugs in the workplace while on duty. I think that given the dynamics surrounding cannabis, that is perhaps limiting us more than we wish to, would suggest perhaps where it says illegal drugs, we instead insert narcotics. Generally, narcotics has a definition just for everyone's edification, perhaps like as mine. Just in Googling narcotics, a drug or other substance that affects mood or behavior and is consumed for non-medical purposes, especially one sold illegally, but not limited to illegal. And I think that would provide more clarity. It seems to have exempted legal drugs.
Very good point. I completely missed that. And I think that if you can't drink alcohol, you can't have a cannabis gummy on the job. So, Jeff, would you be willing to make that amendment?
I think the, we may have to perhaps involve staff from the HR department in this more fully, but the concept around this with illegal drugs versus narcotic, and of course, a legal drug may contain a narcotic, which may be a painkiller in nature or have something along those lines. And I think that was the attempt in the policy to differentiate those which are medically prescribed by a physician, which may be a narcotic or have a narcotic base to it, as opposed to those which illegal drugs being, street drugs or that nature. So that was the attempt in the wording in this particular policy, was to try and capture what we felt was inappropriate in the workplace, and not to discriminate against anyone who has a medically prescribed drug to deal with a particular medical condition. So.
And I see Paul had his hand up.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to committee in response to Councillor Donahue's query about the narcotics. I would concur with Jeff. I would like to make sure the HR staff have been engaged in that conversation, especially around the word narcotics and how it fits into the criminal code and other documents. One question I would also have for Jeff is, Jeff, not to put you on the spot, but I believe we also have a fitness for duty policy as well that covers off the use of alcohol and other substances as well, that would also address the concerns that Councillor Donahue has raised as well. Is that correct, sir?
Yeah, that's correct. Another policy which was not slated for this group to come forward via an update, but we certainly have that fitness for duty policy, and there is an entire management piece related to the challenges around fitness for duty. It certainly would speak to, I think, Chair, maybe with respect to the word narcotic, I think I'm going to have to maybe take a little bit of time, have another discussion around, using that terminology and whether or not that'll present some challenges. As I mentioned, the example I can think of is the challenge around medically prescribed, which would be legal drugs, which would be narcotic in nature or have a narcotic base to them. And I think what we attempted to capture was illegal drugs, or the sale of illegal drugs or use of illegal drugs.
Yeah, because isn't Percocet considered a narcotic? I believe it is, and there are lots of people that take Percocet for back pain, etc. Councillor Donahue, supplementary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Perhaps given the wording that is contained herein right now, I am uncomfortable approving this particular policy. I am not certainly adamant that it be narcotic, perhaps medically prescribed. One of the things, or a fairly salient thing, I think, that distinguishes the fitness for duty versus this policy makes no mention whatsoever of consumption. It is possession, distribution, sale, or transfer. So certainly possession could be a very thorny issue from our perspective, but I would suggest even a legally prescribed narcotic, I would be uncomfortable of it being distributed, sold, or transferred. So perhaps this one could be removed from the set for recommendation to council and given some further consideration.
I was just going to ask Paul procedurally, can we just remove?
Yeah, I'd like to see that motion to amend it to remove that particular policy. And then we would vote on that particular amendment and then vote on the revised resolution, Chair.
So Councillor Donahue, would you be willing to move that?
I will move the amendment to remove consideration of policy A09 from this item on the agenda.
Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Hunt, any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, thank you. So at that, we will move on to A14, which is really just housekeeping. E02 stat and paid holidays. E03 paid holidays. E11 remote work arrangements. And H02 discipline and dismissal. All right, seeing none. I think that we're going to have some discussion on the vaccine policy. The province is supposed to speak at 11 o'clock. Do we want to take a break, maybe a bio break, and people can tune into CP24, or do you want to just press on? Yes, Michael.
Certainly at the discretion of the committee, I'm wondering, do we anticipate something from the provincial announcement that it will be relevant to today's agenda?
I was just thinking that if it was about reopening, that it should just be on the minds of the warden and the CAO and all of county council and all staff. But I think that it could be pertinent to some of us. But if I'm fine to leave it, I can pause. I can record CP24 and watch it later. So let's just carry on to G09, our COVID-19 vaccination policy.
Thank you, Chair. So we are in the package at the on page number 16, which would be the new policy G09, the vaccination policy. And of course, at our September session of County Council, there was a resolution directing staff to develop a new vaccination policy promoting the maximization of COVID rates and at the same time, the safety of the County of Renfrew's workforce in all of our workplaces. Already in the province of Ontario, the Chief Medical Officer of Health has mandated vaccine policies for particularly in our situation, paramedic staff, childcare, as well as long-term care staff, with deadlines that began in as early as September of 2021. There are obviously a growing number of organizations ranging from private corporations to municipalities who are adopting some form of policy around vaccination requirements. And so for us, the items that we wanted to consider within the creation of our policy was, given the proven effectiveness of these vaccines, the increased threat that is posed on our population from a number of variants, and specifically the Delta variant within the fourth wave, the movement of numerous other employers, including municipalities, as well as the advice of public health officials, we believe that there is sufficient justification for us to proceed with developing our own vaccination policy. We do have a responsibility to provide a safe workplace for our employees as well as the public that we serve. And we believe that this policy will go a long way to ensuring that health and safety measures are in place to protect our particular workforce. We have enclosed a letter, a very recent letter, as appendix number 6, the letter from Dr. Robert Cushman, our acting medical officer of health, from the Renfrew County and District Health Unit regarding their support for vaccine policies moving forward. And so with that page number, let me see if I can get to GO9. Our policy recommendation begins on one more page number 76. So really the policy development process that we're using is sort of multifaceted or multi-pronged. The policy content beginning on page 77 starts with covered individuals who receive COVID-19 vaccinations are required to submit proof of vaccination using the Ontario Ministry of Health receipt or equivalent. They can report this through our COR County of Renfrew HR.ca website. We are suggesting that our policy take effect beginning December the 1st. So obviously this meeting today with Finance and Administration Committee, the policy would not be in effect until County Council approval at the end of the month. So essentially 30 days. Our employees would be required to provide proof of vaccination at the first dose level by December the 1st, with proof of vaccination submitted by January 31st for the full vaccination status, which would be first and second dose, as well as ensuring that the waiting period after the second dose has been completed. Page 78 then goes on, item number 2, to speak about non-vaccinated parties. Covered individuals who do not provide, submit proof of vaccination would be deemed non-vaccinated and would therefore, beginning December the 1st, required to follow additional safety protocols and measures consistent with public health guidelines. They are deemed to, on top of page 79, need to complete vaccination hesitancy training, which is available through County of Renfrew HR.ca, and also complete rapid antigen testing and submit results to their supervisor and the employee health coordinator on a weekly basis, and that begins December the 1st. We do have a section for accommodation within our policy, and we are committed to a workplace free from discrimination and harassment in accordance with the Ontario Human Rights Code. We will provide reasonable accommodation for covered individuals belonging to a prohibited ground under the code. Covered individuals who refuse vaccination as a matter of personal preference do not qualify for accommodation under the code. So beginning December the 1st, those individuals that are claiming an accommodation must provide to us that there is a medical reason preventing vaccination against COVID-19 and the relevant time period related to the medical reason, whether it's permanent or on a temporary nature. Vaccination education, as we mentioned, by December the 1st, those folks that do not provide proof of vaccination status must participate in this mandatory vaccination awareness or hesitancy training. That training must take place by December the 1st, and we have a system in place to track any individuals then who have not provided proof and must participate in this mandatory training available to them. Item number 5 deals with testing. Covered individuals who are not vaccinated must, beginning December the 1st, they are required to complete rapid antigen testing at their own expense and on their own time and report the results to their supervisor and employee health coordinator on a weekly basis thereafter, prior to reporting to work. So essentially, December the 1st is our trigger points for all elements of this policy. And for those individuals who do not have proof of full vaccination by December the 1st, must participate in vaccination education, as well as weekly and ongoing testing, and that is prior to them reporting for work. Testing then goes on to talk about anyone with a positive test and what has to happen. Enforcement is another significant section of this policy. That's item 7 on page 81. So again, by December the 1st, 2021, any individuals who are non-compliant with any of the steps within this policy will be placed on an unpaid leave of absence. In bold, at the bottom of page 81, employees placed on a general, non-statutory, unpaid leave of absence are subject to policy E08, which outlines the impacts to employee benefit entitlements. And essentially, for full-time employees who have a benefit program, when they are placed on an unpaid leave of absence, the cost of that benefit program is borne 100% by the employees and not by the County of Renfrew. So that's important. That's already in our policy under E08. We just want to ensure that employees are aware of that policy and aware of the decisions that they are making with respect to non-compliance of this policy will impact them financially with respect to our employee benefits plan. Item 8 then deals with the roles and responsibilities of the employer, the supervisor, and the covered individuals. Certainly item 9, very important, dealing with privacy and confidentiality. And item 10, we want to ensure we have some flexibility in this. So as the nature of the pandemic changes and government and public health directions change, we want to ensure that this policy will be reactive to any other legislative changes that are coming our way. Perhaps with that, just a very quick outline of the significant components of our policy. I would open that up to questions and comments.
Thank you. Oh, Paul's got the first comment.
Thank you, Chair. And I want to just jump in here a little bit. Jeff did a fantastic job overviewing the policy, but I did want to let committee know that there was a considerable amount of back and forth in developing this policy. We went back with respect to just straight requirement of vaccines. And to be frank with committee, we do have long-term care, childcare, and emergency services that follow the province's direction. But, we don't have provincial coverage or direction on those other staff. So our challenge in moving this forward was the level of risk associated with this, looking at our current resourcing of employees and needing to get a better understanding of the rates of vaccinations within the organizations that were not covered by the provincial policies. So rather than go straight to a policy that would require mandatory vaccines, and if you didn't have it, it would result in your immediate leave without pay, or the extreme like the City of Ottawa has done or the City of Toronto has done, termination, we went to a policy that had a bit of a bridge in it that went to the need for weekly antigen testing, just until we better understood where we were as an organization. To be frank, we don't have the depth of employees or the deep pockets of the city of Ottawa or the city of Toronto. These are untested policies in the courts. And so again, we took that into consideration in the development of this particular policy. I do believe what Jeff indicated in terms of section 10, a future amendment is critical. And should that landscape change, we would be back to committee with recommendations down the road. But again, what you have in front of you is an approach that is measured and gives us adequate time to put these measures in place, as well as allows our staff who upon reconsideration may want to get their first dose and then move forward after 28 days to get their second dose. So it does allow us to follow that process. Thank you, Chair.
For that. Two things. Number one, just a housekeeping issue. Paragraph 4 on page 16. Can we take the one out from Christia Freeland's name? And my only question is, I think that the timing of November 15th to December the 1st, what would be the point of laying people off? Why wouldn't we just put into place the accommodation ideas and the rapid antigen testing right away on November 15th if people weren't willing to show their proof of vaccine? It just seems like a very small timeline and a lot of administrative hassle to be laying people off and then bringing them back. Go ahead, Jeff.
Thank you, Chair. So our policy really doesn't come into effect until, and I'll check my calendar, November the 24th, which is County Council approval. So our design of the program really was to allow our staff a month until the 1st of December to, as Paul said, perhaps reconsider their approach to vaccination. So any employees who are hesitant have an opportunity then to have a month's opportunity to arrange for that first dose if they're going down the vaccination path. It also provides staff with a month in order to get medical exemptions or to claim an accommodation under the Human Rights Code and to provide evidence of what that claim is and whether or not it's a bona fide Human Rights Code accommodation issue. In any event, that also provides the employees 30 days or the month of November to participate in the mandatory training, which would be required, as well as to go out and get their very first rapid antigen test in order to continue coming to work effective December the 1st. So we thought that in our policy design, 30 days from approval of County Council to our very first target date, which is December the 1st, allows the employees to elect one of those options and still be able to participate in the workforce beginning December the 1st. So it's one of those elements that our employees must be engaged in within that 30-day period. And we have, as Paul said, we have about 500 employees that are covered under the long-term care directive, another 150 covered under paramedic services. So we're looking at pulling this information together within 30 days for about 200 employees. And so that's the challenge that's before us in order to be prepared for December the 1st. We really have no data to really understand, other than anecdotal data, how many employees are already vaccinated and have the ability to provide proof of that. So we have no idea about the number of employees that would have to be managed from December the 1st onward. And so we thought that was a reasonable time frame to allow us to be prepared, as well as the employees to provide evidence or be prepared for December the 1st.
Questions, comments, concerns from committee? Councillor Donahue, and then I see you, Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you to Mr. Foss. My first comments will be to commend Mr. Foss and all those who participated in the development of this policy. I know that this is a fraught environment to operate in. Given that, I anticipate that there will be, in all likelihood, some significant debate at council. I will certainly defer to any discussions on the merits of the policy itself. With respect to specifics, I just this is on page 77 of the PDF, page 2 of the policy itself, the definitions, and it makes reference to vaccinated. And I think just to be consistent with what I think the province and perhaps the world fully vaccinated is having received both doses and 14 days having elapsed, that we may consider appending to the end of the written something such as, and not less than 14 days have elapsed since receiving all recommended doses, or something to that effect. Bear with me just one moment. The other question that I had was and it appears under testing, with respect to the rapid antigen testing for those who continue to eschew the vaccine itself and follow the parallel path of being subject to the weekly antigen testing, that a positive result with a rapid antigen point of care testing will require those individuals to self-isolate, awaiting the results of the what is referred to as the gold standard PCR test. Will the staff that are subject to that have the availability of sick days and or vacation days while they are self-isolating, and are they on unpaid leave should they have no days available to them in that particular situation?
That's a great question.
Through you, Chair, and thank you for the question, Councillor. So just to be very, very clear, any of our part-time staff don't have a opportunity for a county-supported paid sick leave during this point in time, but there are other programs that are available to them for this leave of absence period while they are participating in the testing program. For our full-time staff who are compliant with this policy, have chosen not to get to be vaccinated and are awaiting test results. If they have time available to them, I would suggest that our policy would be triggered and that they would be supported via our short-term disability leave period while they're awaiting those results. And we've that's very consistent with our approach to date prior to a vaccination policy. So if someone is testing positive, there is support for them under the short-term disability program.
Thank you. Councillor Brose.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's through you to Mr. Foss. My question is these vaccination policies are being presented to our municipal councils. The vaccination hesitancy training, if that's virtual, could the lower tier municipalities also log in and get that training?
And through you, Chair, thank you for the question, Councillor Brose. That training, vaccine hesitancy training, I believe, is already in place here at the county, and it was specifically sourced through our paramedic services department. So I don't see any difficulty in that as being available or being allowed to be shared throughout. And certainly we would look into that, and if at all possible, we would make that available to all municipalities. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Councillor Hunt, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Jeff. Jeff, under, let me see what page here. On page 77, under covered individuals, it says all county employees, students. Does students mean students who are employees of County of Renfrew?
Mm-hmm.
So we do, as part of our regular annual practice, we are hiring students for a very short-term temporary nature over the summer months. We have a number of students working in a number of departments. So wanted to ensure that we captured sort of our student population. We don't have any students working with us essentially in the non-summer period, but from the end of April or May until September, we do have a student population. So wanted to be very specific that we included them as well. One might deem that they are a part-time employee, a temporary employee, but we have essentially a separate program in place for our student workers for the summer months.
Okay,
Supplementary.
thank you. And my other question is on page 81, where just let me get to it. So under enforcement, so people who don't comply are put on unpaid leave. Is there any time limit on that? Because this part is concerning to me. I know if we have a position where somebody is put on part-time leave, it's very hard to fill that. So I'm wondering, is there a time limit they're put on part-time leave, and after that, it results in termination?
And through you, Chair. So in answer to your question, Councillor Hunt, very specifically, we have not added any language to the policy with an end date for this leave of absence. Neither have we ventured into the discussion around termination. We do have as item number 10, the amendment to this policy, and we would anticipate that, depending on how many employees we are managing within this vaccination policy beyond December the 1st, we may need to come back to committee and council at a future point in time to discuss and have decisions around that very point. We purposely did not want to take the approach of some larger municipalities that Paul referenced, where a non-compliance with the policy would require termination of employment. That is fraught with a number of issues, having an adequate number of staff, having short staffing situations in very key areas. It also has a very significant legal liability component to us, which is therefore a financial component to it. And so for the purposes of our vaccination policy, we wanted to ensure that this was a leave of absence and that our hope is that we are not managing any employees under this policy beyond December the 1st. Our hope is that we have full compliance with this policy and that we don't need to come back with an amendment somewhere down the line.
Thank you. Warden.
Thank you very much, Chair. And again, I do appreciate all of the work that Jeff and his staff have put into this. It's not easy. I have a couple of questions. I want to thank Councillor Hunt for asking one of mine. So I won't, I have a shorter list. So on page 77, it talks about proof of vaccination. It says any covered individuals that begin to work. I would have thought that being even offered a position, that one of the job requirements would be that you had already vaccinated. So I'm just wondering why we would even put that in there, because I would think that would be a job requirement before you even offer the position. So that's one question. On page 79, it talks about accommodation, and the individual must identify the specific prohibited grounds that they believe they should be exempt. I'm wondering if there's anything other than medical exemption that we are willing to accept. And if we're not, then I think that should be very explicit, that it should say medical exemption, because there have been some individuals indicating on religious grounds that they object to the vaccine. So if it's medical and that's it, then I think we should maybe be a little bit more explicit on that one. And then my final question is from page 80, and it talks about the vaccine education that must be done by December 1st. I'm just wondering, when are we expecting our staff to provide us with proof of vaccination? So that I'm assuming they can't all wait till December 1st, and then we're trying to get some training and, trying to see if we can, sway people. Those are my questions. Thank you.
I think the warden hit on a lot of stuff that Councillor Donahue opened up this conversation by saying at County Council, this is going to be quite the debate, because I've heard every excuse or non-excuse, and I think that this is a very divisive issue, and I'm concerned about it, and I'm really looking forward to hearing all 17 talking heads and where people are landing on it. But Jeff, I will let you answer the warden's questions.
Thank you, Chair, and to you, Warden Robinson. Maybe I'll go backwards in sequence. The question around December the 1st. So our employees, covered employees, have until December the 1st to provide proof of vaccination. Failing that, they also know they have until December the 1st to provide a medical exemption or an exemption under one of the 9 grounds under the Human Rights Code. At the same time, they're also aware of the fact that on December the 1st, they must have already participated in the education program and have it completed. That's thus the reason for the 30-day lapse from County Council approval of the policy until December the 1st. So they have 30 days to provide evidence to us that they have completed the training. They also have to, by December the 1st, to continue with employment, have provided the negative rapid antigen test to our employee health coordinator and their supervisor by December the 1st. So essentially, we're giving employees options, proof of vaccination, or you must go down this other path with a medical exemption and or training and or not and the rapid antigen test proof by December the 1st, and thereafter every week. They must also provide an ongoing proof of weekly negative results using the rapid antigen test. So that's the December 1st date. It's a very key date, and it gives our employees 30 days to provide one of those courses of action to us, proof that they have participated in one of those courses of action. The questions around the Human Rights Code. So, we've seen correspondence from the Ontario Human Rights Commission with respect to vaccine policies, and essentially they have already provided information to all employers in Ontario that employers requiring a vaccine policy would not be a violation of the Ontario Human Rights Code. So no one can claim that this policy is going to violate their human rights under the code. That's already a statement that the Commission has made. However, the Commission has already also said that there must be an accommodation in place. And so we have allowed in our policy for an accommodation for those folks who choose not to be vaccinated, regardless of their own personal beliefs. And so our accommodation is training, as well as proof of this negative test on an ongoing basis. And so that's our accommodation within this policy. And so we recognize that there will be folks that will say, I have an accommodation because of my personal beliefs, and it's protected by the code. Essentially, the Commission has said that's not going to be supported by the Ontario Human Rights Commission, and that employers must provide for an accommodation. And so that was our attempt at creating the policy the way it is today. We want to ensure that employees have a choice and that they are not forced into taking the vaccine if that is not their choice.
Chair, if I may just weigh in on that answer a little bit. You know, my interpretation, this, you know, lots of back and forth here. Jeff is correct. The Human Rights Commission says that no accommodation is required under the grounds. But when I read the Ontario Human Rights position paper was, you need a process to address the point. So if someone makes a claim of with respect to creed or religious grounds or one of the other 14 grounds that they do not feel obliged, we still need to have a process to get to know to these folks. And that is what is outlined in the policy.
Thanks for the explanation from both of you. I think that the information that we've been getting is all over the map, and I don't disagree with whomever said, you know, that we haven't seen this challenged in court yet. I have no doubt that we will, but it's going to be very interesting going forward. Councillor Doncaster, did I see your hand up?
I believe you did.
Excellent. Go ahead, sir.
Wait, I forgot what I wanted to ask. No, I remember. Yeah, I would reiterate some of the comments that people made, but just briefly, I wonder if a separate policy needs to be done or whether this could just, when it says, I don't have it up, where is it? Coverage, all employees and county council, or does a separate policy need to be made up? Could we recommend to staff that a county council policy come back to us also? That's it.
You kind of stole that out of my brain, Glenn. I've been wondering why through all these municipalities, they have these vaccine policies and some of them do not accommodate the way this one does, but in no text is there something for any councillor or mayor across the province of Ontario. So if we're putting this on our staff, why are we not held to the same level of vaccination or rapid antigen testing? I've wondered the same thing. But maybe that's something to bring back at county council. I don't know. Yes, Paul, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to committee. We did contemplate the inclusion of council. Really, this is a staff policy that was initially developed. I'm not saying that council could not be included in it, but when in talking to my colleagues across Eastern Ontario, the incorporation or inclusion of council into their policies came from council themselves, and council to a certain degree governs themselves. So that direction would need to come from council to our staff, but this is designed and written for staff. I could see though in the policy definitions in terms of covered individuals, it would then include council, and then with respect to the enforcement component, there would be another separate paragraph relating to council that 48 hours prior to attending a committee or council meeting, members of council would need to provide a proof of a rapid antigen test. So yes, it could be done, and those are some options, but that needs to come from council in terms of that direction to us. Thank you.
Well, then maybe we leave it to county council and see if Glenn would like to bring it up again at that time. Yeah, okay. Anything further on the vaccine policy? All right, seeing none. So you've heard the recommendation. We have taken out A09, misconduct in the workplace. Procedurally, Paul, can I just ask for the mover and seconder for a friendly amendment to this recommendation?
Why don't you take the vote on the first amendment to amend it as Councillor Donohue's presented that amendment earlier on? I don't think we did the vote on it. So all in favor of, we did? Okay.
Yeah.
And then I think all you need to do now is vote on the recommendation as amended.
Okay. So can I get a mover and seconder for the recommendation as amended, please? Moved by Councillor Bros, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Any further on this? Councillor Donohue.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm just wondering if perhaps consideration may be given to bringing this forward to council as two distinct items so that the revisions, review of current policies be considered as one item at county council, and the discussion and debate surrounding the vaccine policy be taken up on its own.
Very much like we did here today, and I think that's an excellent suggestion. Paul?
Chair, would a motion to separate this policy out and provide it to county council on its own be appropriate? And we could do that.
Yes, I believe so.
And so we.
Okay,
need to
so
move in a
so I
second for
need,
that.
so Councillor Bros and Councillor Hunt, are you okay with also severing that? Because now I've got the motion on the floor now. Okay, so yes, Councillor Donahue.
Sorry, if I may, we have returned to the main motion. So I think process-wise, the committee should take up a motion to amend, which is to remove, sorry, I've lost the particular policy number on the vaccine.
09.
A09, to remove
09.
that, sorry, to remove that from the this item, this numbered item, and present it, vote on it and present it separately to council.
Okay, so I need a mover and seconder for that then. Moved by Councillor Donahue. Seconded by Councillor Doncaster. Anything further? So I'll ask for a vote on removing it and presenting it separately, but we're not sending it back like we are the A09. Okay, all in favor. Everybody knows what they're voting on now. Excellent. All right. And the recommendation as amended. The mover and the seconder were Councillor Bros and Councillor Hunt. Councillor Doncaster, did you have something to say?
I did. So just based on my previous comment, I would probably like to give Mr. Morrow notice that I will be bringing that suggestion back. So in an effort to allow this to move through, or, you know, at least certainly council have the debate on it, if his suggested recommendations for either modifying this policy or creating a new one, if that could be ready so that we don't slow things down. I don't know if it's a lot of work, if it's too much work, or if he can't do that without council direction, then that's fine with me also, but just giving you notice that I will be bringing that.
I think that's what Paul was saying, is that direction would have to come from Olive County, but Paul, what do you think?
Now that it's been put on the floor of finance and admin, I think staff, you know, may not have all the answers, but we will be prepared to answer council's questions with more certainty as to how we would undertake that process, should we be directed to do so by council.
That's fair. All right, so I'll call for the vote. All in favor? All right. The corporate services report as a whole. Can I get a mover and seconder to adopt the corporate service department report, please? Moved by Councillor Bros, seconded by Councillor Hunt. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Is there any new business? I see none. Do we have any requirement for a closed meeting? Paul? Paul? No?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, the date of our next meeting is Wednesday, November 10th, due to Remembrance Day, and I will ask for a mover and seconder to adjourn, please. Moved by the warden, seconded by Councillor Doncaster. All in favor? And we are adjourned. Thank you, committee.